In a small town in East Texas, where God Bless America signs hung from every porch and every evening ended with a muted television and a cold beer, Ethan grew up between two worlds. One was the sunlit backyard where he taught Caleb how to swing a baseball bat, laughing so hard they'd collapse into the grass. The other was the cold kitchen where Roy Moore, his father, spoke like a judge, where every odd behavior was treated as betrayal. Ethan knew he was gay by the time he was 16. But like so many others in towns like theirs, he chose silence. He said nothing when his father mocked sissy boys, when his mother pressed her lips tight every time someone mentioned the unmarried aunt, or when Caleb started growing into someone a little quieter, a little more sensitive, someone different. Ethan always kept an eye on Caleb. Even when school got busy, he noticed Caleb avoiding football, ignoring toy trucks, drawn instead to comic books and sketch pads. And he understood. Ethan recognized the look in Caleb's eyes when a male actor appeared on screen, the same look he once had as a kid. He knew that look would be crushed if the wrong person saw it. That nightmare began on a humid night in June. Ethan was walking in from the backyard when he heard shouting from the garage. The door was ajar, but the words cut through. "You think I didn't see it? What the hell is this, Caleb? You a man or not?" It was his father roaring. Ethan ran. He found Caleb standing frozen, eyes wide with terror, a phone on the floor still glowing with the image of a smiling male actor. Without thinking, without fear, Ethan stepped forward, shielding Caleb with his body and locking eyes with the man who'd raised them. "It's me," Ethan said, voice shaking but clear. "I'm gay, not Caleb, so stop." Silence fell over the garage. Caleb gasped behind him. The fan buzzed overhead, stirring the hot air, and then the first punch landed. Ethan hit the concrete hard. Blood filled his mouth, his vision blurred, but he could still hear his father screaming things that couldn't be unsaid. He was dragged out the door, shoved down the steps as the sky broke open and rain fell like judgment. His mother stood in the hallway but didn't move. Caleb ran after him, pressing a jacket and a crumpled $20 bill into his brother's hand, his tear-filled eyes cracking Ethan's heart wide open. Ethan didn't speak. He just turned and walked down the rain-soaked road into the dark, the water and the shadows swallowing everything. His childhood, his home, the dream that his family might one day understand. He didn't know where he was going. He only knew he couldn't go back. And he wasn't sure Caleb would be safe. If you've ever stood up for someone and lost everything, stay with us. This story isn't over. Like, share, and subscribe to Heart Stories, where every bruised heart gets heard. Houston didn't welcome Ethan with open arms. It met him with alleyway shadows, the sting of cold concrete under cardboard sheets, and the acrid smell of half-burned cigarettes. He had never been in a city so big, so loud, so uncaring. For 3 days, he survived off vending machine snacks and tap water from gas station sinks, clutching the crumpled 20 Caleb had slipped him like it was a lifeline. By the fourth night, the 20 was gone, and so was hope. He curled up behind a bar dumpster off Montrose, his jacket soaked through, his stomach hollow, and his mind replaying the moment his father's fist cracked across his face like a gavel ending a trial that was never fair. That was the night Vivian found him. She had just stepped out from the back of Club Poppy's, still in full drag platinum blonde wig, winged eyeliner sharp as glass, heels clicking with authority. Her eyes caught on the shape slumped in the dark, and her voice, half silk, half cigarette smoke, broke through the fog. "Baby, you either just got mugged or you're waiting to be. Which is it?" Ethan blinked at her. His voice was barely a whisper. "Neither, I got thrown away." Vivian didn't ask more. She just exhaled and said, "Then come inside before this city chews you up for good." She made ramen 2 packs, extra chili oil, and sat across from him at her tiny kitchen table, peeling off lashes and wiping off foundation as he inhaled the food like it might disappear. "You got family?" she asked. "Had friends?" He shook his head. She nodded slowly, tapping her painted nail against the bowl. "Then you start here. You want to survive, you got to learn to shine louder than the voices trying to dim you. And baby, out there, they don't just want you small, they want you invisible." Over the next few weeks, Vivian became more than a stranger who fed him. She became his lighthouse. She taught him how to stand in heels first against the wall, then strutting down her hallway with her shouting, "Chin up, you're not a shadow." She handed him a brush and said, "Drag isn't a costume, it's armor. It tells the world they don't get to write your story." At night, she brought him to Club Poppies. Not to perform yet, but to watch. Queens became goddesses under neon lights. Laughter drowned out judgment. Glitter outshone shame. For the first time since Ethan had stood in that garage and claimed who he was, he felt something return. Power. It wasn't immediate. Trauma stuck to him like sweat in Texas heat. But under Vivian's wing, he began to thaw. He started cleaning her apartment, organizing her old costumes, studying YouTube tutorials she swore by. One evening, while helping her sort boxes in her closet, Ethan found an old Polaroid tucked in a dusty frame. Two young men, one of them was his father. The other man had kind eyes and a playful grin. The back of the photo was labeled, in fading ink, "Roy plus Sam, 86. Ethan's blood froze. "Sam?" Vivian looked over. Her voice lost its usual playfulness. "Yeah, Sam Moore. He was your dad's cousin, and my best friend." She sank onto the bed, her eyes distant. "He came out at 21. Got kicked out by your grandpa. Same damn house you grew up in. He stayed with me for a while, did odd jobs. Sweet boy. Quiet, but never bitter. Then, after his mom passed, he tried to go home for the funeral." Her jaw tensed. "He never came back." Ethan stared at the photo. Sam's face was unfamiliar, but the pain behind his story wasn't. "Your dad didn't just reject you," Vivian said quietly. "He's been carrying that shame for decades. Sam's blood ran through him and he tried to erase it. Now you're his mirror, and he can't look at you without seeing what he lost or what he threw away." Ethan felt like the floor tilted. The punch that had broken his lip that night wasn't just about him. It was a blow aimed at a ghost, thrown across generations. He carried that photo to his room and stared at it for hours. Sam was more than a tragedy. He was proof that silence had never saved anyone, that hiding didn't make them safer. And maybe, just maybe, if Ethan had spoken sooner, Caleb wouldn't be next. Vivian stood in the doorway that night, her voice soft but fierce. "You don't have to become what they fear, but you damn sure don't have to stay broken by it." And that's when Ethan decided he wouldn't hide anymore. Not behind makeup, not under wigs, not in the city, not from his past. He wasn't done being a brother. He was just getting started. It started with a name Ethan had never heard at home, but one that suddenly haunted every thought. Sam. Not uncle, not cousin Sam. Just Sam, spoken like a secret too heavy to carry aloud. Vivian told him everything she remembered. "Your father and Sam used to be close. Grew up together like brothers. Sam was the only one who could make Roy laugh. Really laugh, not that half smile he gives strangers. But then came the summer after high school. Sam came out, said he was in love. Didn't even get to finish the sentence before your granddad threw him out of the house like trash." Ethan sat in silence, clutching the Polaroid. His father's face in the picture didn't look hardened yet. Just young, just unsure. Vivian continued, "Sam came to me that night with one backpack and eyes full of salt. Said he didn't hate them, just hoped they'd miss him." She paused. They didn't, not loud enough to matter. She drove Ethan to a warehouse outside the city, half collapsed and forgotten. "Sam used to work here part-time. It's nothing now, just dust and time." Inside, it smelled like old cardboard and rust. Vivian led him to a corner behind a stacked shelf and pulled free a small wooden box, sealed with brittle masking tape. "I kept it," she said, "in case someone came looking." Inside the box, a stack of water-damaged comics, a cassette tape, and a cloth-bound journal. Ethan opened it slowly. The pages were cramped, smudged, and personal. Dreams, sketches, fragments of love letters never sent. Then he reached the final page. "He looked through me like I never existed. Maybe he wanted to forget we shared the same blood." Ethan stared at the line for what felt like forever. He didn't need a name to know who he was, his father. A man who had erased Sam so completely, Ethan had grown up never knowing his name. A man who carried that silence like a shield and turned it into rage every time Caleb showed a hint of softness, every time Ethan dared to love. This wasn't just about homophobia, it was a curse passed down like bad furniture. Shame inherited and weaponized. Sam had been banished, not because he was evil, but because he reminded the family of what they feared in themselves, and because they were too weak to name it. Ethan's hands shook as he closed the journal. Sam was the first, Vivian said gently. You and Caleb. You're the echo. And if nobody breaks the silence, it'll keep repeating. Ethan spent the next week staring at the ceiling most nights, Sam's words echoing louder than sleep. Maybe he wanted to forget we shared the same blood. He thought of Caleb, alone in that house, walking on eggshells like he had, maybe worse. How many nights had Caleb wondered if he was broken? How many times had he almost said something and swallowed it back because of what happened to Ethan? No more. Ethan dug through Vivian's old sewing kits, found thread, pulled out the silver feather boa from her Mardi Gras trunk, and began stitching it into something new, something bold. An armor built not to hide, but to confront. When he stepped back from the mirror that Saturday night, his eyeliner sharp as glass, his lips lined with violet, and his eyes hollow but burning. He wasn't just Ethan anymore. He was Ethan Moore, descendant of silence, breaker of it, walking proof that truth may cost you everything, but lies cost you more. And for the first time, he was ready to go back. Not to ask for forgiveness, but to name what they tried to bury. The call came in the middle of a Thursday storm, the kind that made the windows rattle and the city smell like wet concrete and regret. Vivian handed Ethan her phone with her brows furrowed, eyes flicking with worry. It was Caleb's voice on the other end, strained, shaking. They painted my locker, Ethan. Someone hung a pride flag on it and wrote, "Your fugget brother taught you well." He paused. The principal says I'm being suspended. They're calling it provocative behavior. Ethan didn't speak. He didn't need to. His silence said what his voice couldn't. This ends now. That night, while Houston drowned in thunder, Ethan packed his things, not in a suitcase, but in purpose. He pulled the silver boots from under the bed, the ones Vivian once said made him look like justice dipped in glitter. He pulled on the outfit she'd helped him stitch, feathers, vinyl, a statement in violet and chrome. His face became war paint, each stroke of eyeliner a word his father had never let him say. When he walked out of Club Poppies and into the Texas night, he wasn't a boy anymore. He was the reckoning. By the time he reached his old high school, the school board meeting had already begun. Parents murmured in rows of plastic chairs, teachers adjusted their clipboards, and his father sat in the third row, arms folded, jaw tight like a locked box. The room was cold with tension and fluorescent lights. Until the door opened, until Ethan Moore walked in drenched in spotlight and unapologetic sequins. Whispers cracked through the silence. He didn't pause, didn't flinch. He walked straight to the podium and took the mic like it belonged to him. 10 years ago, he began, voice steady, gaze fixed ahead. My cousin Sam disappeared after coming back home. My father never said his name again. 2 months ago, I was thrown out of my own house for saying I'm gay. And tonight you want to suspend my brother for simply existing? Because of who he's related to? Some in the audience shifted uncomfortably. His father's face twitched, a muscle tightening near his eye. Ethan continued. My brother Caleb did nothing wrong. He didn't vandalize the locker. He didn't invite the label. All he did was survive in the shadow of a name my family taught him to fear mine. He turned his eyes on the school board, but his voice wasn't for them. It was for the boy he used to be, the one who walked into the rain with a busted lip and no plan. You want to teach kids a lesson? Here's one. Silence is not safety, shame is not discipline, and family is not a weapon. He let the words hang in the air, daring anyone to cut through them. Then he turned to the audience, his gaze locking on the one man who still hadn't moved. Your shame made you cruel, Ethan said, voice trembling not with fear but fire. But it doesn't have to make you silent. For the first time, his father didn't look away. He didn't speak. He didn't stand. He just stared. Maybe with anger. Maybe with something else. But Ethan didn't wait to find out. He stepped down from the stage, heels clicking like punctuation. Each step saying, this is not just a performance. This is a protest, a memory unburied, a truth no longer waiting for permission. Caleb was waiting outside the building, his hoodie soaked with rain, his arms wrapped tight around himself. When Ethan reached him, Caleb looked up, not with questions, not with fear, but with something else entirely: pride. For the first time, the silence between them wasn't heavy. It was holy. And for Ethan, that was louder than any applause. The town didn't change overnight. No rainbow flags suddenly appeared on porches. No sudden apologies arrived in mailboxes. But something shifted small and steady, like rain eroding stone. Caleb's suspension was lifted quietly 2 days after the board meeting. No official statement, no acknowledgement of wrong. Just a phone call to his mother saying, "There's been a reconsideration." Caleb didn't smile when he told Ethan. He just nodded, his voice calm but certain. "You did that." Ethan didn't reply. He didn't need to. Weeks passed. Houston called again, but Ethan stayed. Vivian understood. One morning, she slid a box onto his kitchen table, worn, taped at the corners. Inside was a pair of silver heels scuffed at the tips, and a note. These were Sam's. "He danced once. You made him visible again." Ethan pressed the shoes to his chest, eyes wet but unashamed. That Saturday, he walked onto the community center stage, once reserved for county fairs and family BBQs, now strung with soft lights and modest speakers. It wasn't club poppies, but it was enough. The folding chairs filled slowly. Kids, teens, even some teachers who'd once walked past Caleb without a glance. The mayor came, the librarian who'd whispered, "Thank you for what you said." And in the front row, sitting stiffly in his old denim jacket, was Roy Moore, Ethan's father. He didn't wave, didn't smile, just sat there, eyes steady on the stage. Ethan took the mic. No glitter this time, just a black blazer, rolled sleeves, and the kind of truth that didn't need sparkle to shine. "I'm not here to perform," he said. "I'm here to remember." He spoke of Sam, of what it meant to disappear in your own hometown. He spoke of Caleb, how strength sometimes wears the face of quiet boys who dare to feel. And he spoke of himself not as a victim, not as a hero, but as a bridge between silence and sound. "My father never said sorry," Ethan told the crowd, "but he's here tonight. And sometimes showing up is the beginning of repair." Roy didn't move. But when the applause rose at the end, his hands clapped once, twice, 3 times before falling still on his lap. Ethan stepped down, the lights dimming behind him. Caleb was waiting in the wings, a sketchbook in hand. "They want to redesign the basketball logo," he said, flipping it open. Inside was a familiar emblem, bold lines, fierce lettering, but beneath it, hidden like a secret only the brave could find, were soft streaks of color, almost invisible, a subtle arc of a rainbow. Ethan smiled. "They'll never notice." Caleb grinned back. "Only the ones who need to." Later that night, Ethan stood barefoot in the backyard of the house he once called prison. The sky was wet and silent. Vivian's shoes in one hand, Caleb's sketch in the other. He didn't need a spotlight anymore. The stars were enough. Behind him, the screen door creaked open. Roy stepped out, stood in the doorway, and said nothing. Then he nodded once and went back inside, not a word. But not a door slammed either. Sometimes beginnings sound like silence. And sometimes the ones we protect end up being the ones who remind us why we fought in the first place. What does showing up mean to you? If Ethan's story moved you, drop a heart in the comments and share it with someone who needs to hear it. This is Heart Stories, where truth takes the mic. Would you like us to follow Caleb's story next? Comment below.